just like array or start on arrays.
Okay. So let's talk about, if you talk about arrays, so how do you declare an array? Anyone know how to create an array?
Yeah, you data type and then the square brackets.
Just like
And then a name.
the string args that we see that, right? So let's talk about array a little bit. Now, we're going to talk about how we're going to create a method that take array as parameter, correct? So we're going to talk about arrays and statics method. So it's pretty much just the same method that you already seen before, which is what? Main method, right? So do you notice that you have an array as parameter already?
Yeah, string bracket.
All right, so let's take a look at, we're going to pretty much define the same method like a main, but we're not calling the main. We're going to call it as the average, the sum, the product, and factorial like the question defined, right? Let's create a new method. So I'm going to create a question set calculator, correct? So create a calculator class. Now we no longer say public static void main, but this is a static method. So public static. So the question said it's going to returns, right? If it returns, so we no longer use void. Use array as parameter for sum, average, and product. We're going to talk about overload. So we're going to make a method that returns the sum. So let's do sum first. So now what should be the data type for the method? Like the sum of the number? It could be
Probably double, because it could be
double if we sum the decimal numbers, right? And the parameter is going to be just like instead of string brackets args, we can just say this can be the same name, doesn't matter because it's just the name, right? Or you can say numbers, any name, right?
Okay, it's just the name.
Yeah, just the name. Like in this case, the difference between main is this is instead of void we say double because it's going to return the sum. Instead of main it's going to call sum as the name. Instead of string it's going to be double because we take a group, right? A group, an array of doubles to sum, right? To find the sum. So now probably you're going to return the result, right? So I'm going to just create a, just like when you start to implement, right? Let's create a result, initialize results to 0, and then you want to return the result. Result pretty much the sum, right? So how do you find the sum? We really learn how to loop, right? Because array pretty much has the size. You say it's going to pass in a group of array in, right? So we need to We don't know the size, but arrays has dot length that give you the size. Then you probably want to loop, right? Int I equal to 0, I less than the length of the arrays, right? And then we just increment the I. So it's going to add to it. Now we already have resolved. Pretty much just plus equals to each element in the array. That's pretty much how you implement the sum. Is that simple?
So you don't need the parentheses on the dot length method?
It is not a class, right?
Oh, because the R is not a class?
Yeah, it's
Just an array.
just an array, a group of array. So it's not a method.
So it's the dot length is a property. It's not actually a method.
Yeah, it's like the remember class has what, like name of person, age of person. Length is just like name or age with the public attributes. Like see that public final int length. So it's just an attribute of the class, not the method of the class. You can access the attribute that way too, by do dot and the attribute name instead of the method with parentheses. Same thing. Okay. That's a good question, right? Now you probably want to do the same for products.
Yeah.
So product should be simple. Same thing. Instead of plus, just change to asterisk and change the name, right? Find the product, right? Done. Average, pretty much same as the sum divided by the length, right?
Yeah.
So we just change the name to average, and then the result divided by the length. Then you get average. So this assignment is so easy. Then we finished 3 already. Just 5 factorial, huh? We talked about factorial once, right?
Yeah. I think.
Yeah, 5.1.
It's just loop, right?
Code 5.1.
So now factorial technically is gonna be int, right? There's no such double factorial.
Yeah. Yep.
So how do you find factorial? We talked about that once already.
You multiply from the number and then keep incrementing down by 1. So you multiply it length times length minus 1 times length minus 2 until you hit 0. So you want to loop.
So let me introduce you to, last time I showed you how to loop already. You probably can revise that. But
Well, I mean, the loop's going to look similar. You can use a for loop, so similar to the ones we've already done. Probably closer to the product, except instead of going up, you would go down, starting from args.length. So it'll probably be int I equals args.length, while I is greater than 0, I minus minus.
But when you find a factorial, you normally find from one number, right?
Yes. So you're not going to pass it.
So So find a factorial. I'm looking at that.
Like you just say
int.
like a number like
Yeah.
5 factorial, right?
Yeah, so instead of treating it like an array, you can just treat it like the one instance. So you int result equals
Is it 0?
no, it shouldn't be 0.
Otherwise everything will be 0, right?
Have a one.
Yeah, 1. And then 4.
I'm sure everyone know how to do 4, right? Yes.
Do a for loop.
When they show you again, or we talk about that, right?
How to do a for loop? Or
I
just-
mean, to implement factorial with for loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I use an array.
Now we never use any loop.
Yeah, use like a while loop.
Then I don't want to show how to use iteration
Okay.
to, because we talked about that already. So you can review, right? So for, do, while, those are iterations. But I want to show you how to use recursion. So what's recursion? Recursion pretty much not using loops at all, but it's going to call itself. Like, you know, factorial is going to return a smaller version of itself. Like, for example, if I call itself again by passing the smaller version of itself, right? Because the method will return the result, right, of itself. And then pretty much it's factorial just keep calling the number, multiply the smaller version of itself, correct? If you remember, right, like if I say factorial of 2, it's going to be 2 times factorial of 1. Or let me write a comment a little bit. If I say factorial of 3, you technically going to do what? 3 times what?
3 times 2 times 1. Or
2
times
factorial, right?
Factorial. Yeah.
So if number is 3, this is 3 times 2 factorial, right?
Right.
And 2 factorial is going to call itself
So 2 factorial is 1.
times 1, right? Itself over and over again. This is called recursion. So recursion need to know when to stop.
Yeah.
So that's why we want to use if statement to check if
If number
the number
0.
okay equals to, so what's the best case?
What?
We call best case here. Best, like best case. Best case, like to make it stop, keep calling. Like L is going to call, right? It's going to keep calling to get a smaller version of itself. See that? So with best case, we pretty much just returns 1, which is 0 fact is 1, right? So when it's get to 0, or another way, like this one is going to be result but we want to say maybe we want that way. So this one, you pretty much just gonna return 1, right? Because with 0 fact is 1, correct? And then this is gonna be, for example, if I put 1, it's gonna return 1 as the result, correct? or this one technically have result already, just return result, right? Now when you see return result repeating like that, it's gonna return it's gonna jump out, right? Else pretty much like say if I have 2, so it's gonna be 2 fact here.
Do you know?
Result is gonna be, what's the result in this case?
You're talking about 1 times 1? Because you're saying if the number you input is 2, then instead of factorially 2 minus 1, which is 1, right?
Still have to do number, which is 2, right?
Yeah.
2 times
Factorial of
1, right?
Yeah.
So 2 minus 1, which is 1. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. But don't you have 2 return statements? Because after the if else is evaluated, that second return is outside. So it doesn't matter what the number is, it would, well.
Right there, right?
So if the number is 0, it returns the first one, and then outside of the if statement, will jump out to finish, and when they return that second return as well.
No, when return is going to exit right away.
Okay. Just stops there. Okay.
Or you can just say results equals to 1, or it's already equal to 1.
Right. Alright.
So that's pretty much just another way to do factorial. We call recursion. We can test them now, right? Now, before we go into test, let's talk about overloading. So, use overload method. We already use array as parameters for overload sum, average, and product. Yeah, factorial has to be by itself, right? So we didn't use array. We make all method as statics. Now, what's overload? So you can see there's a problem with sum, right? It can only read double.
Right.
What happens if I want to sum the integers? It's going to say data types mismatch, right? If you
Right. Yeah.
if you provide an integer, you have to do 1.0, right?
Yeah. Because it would just cast it.
Right. So now you know how to create driver to test that, correct? So you can do another way by create a test. You hit out enter, add a class, or you can go to so you should have the something to talk about, like create test under this menu. Now, the reason why we want to create test when we create a method like that, because we can have several classes like this to have their own methods, right? And we don't want to have too many main keep testing it in a real application. Like in that real application, you're going to have one main, right? Once you create new class, new methods, you don't want to have your main to test that in your code. That makes sense? Because your code actually intentionally maybe perform something else, but you just create a calculator just assisting that main application. You don't want your main application actually to write a code to test calculator. So that's why we, in that scenarios, we want to create a test. One of these menus is going to have that. I thought it's an airline inspect code cleanup. I'll enter, do the same. You can hit on create test, but there's a menu here say create test, like the same here. Now you can go and get it. And we can use like JUnit 4. This is called unit test. It's pretty much just gonna add like additional libraries that doesn't have when you have JDK, right? So like now I'm not requiring you to use this, but it's just showing you. As you may see, I always show you new tools, right? Because you should get yourself ready. If you do 201 with me, I will require you to do unit test, which is you can have in 2 months if you register for 201, right? Now it's pretty much just another library, right, with a class that you probably don't have it. This is standard JDK, so we need to just add it to the class path. Alright, so we just use from the IntelliJ right there. See that? It's just another library. Just like when you create your calculator, you technically can create your own library here, right? And then you can technically add to your new project when you want to use calculators. Okay, like we reuse the code over again, right? Remember we learned last time how to create a class to use your class, right? So now we want to test. You see this is just like another class that like assert. These are some of the classes that help you to test your method without, you see it's going to create a class named calculate test, a new class, instead of create calculator driver with main, right? So you don't really need to have main. Then you're not affecting your main application while you're doing the test for your new class and method. That makes sense? Alright, so now technically this is the same. You can just write any code that you want, right? Like main, right? But we will show you first, like I'm not using math, I want to use my own calculator now, right? And the method, these are the method that we just created. Let's test our factorial. So factorial of 4. So now you may not see much benefit of unit test yet. Okay, like this is just like main, right? So first benefit that you see is not affecting your main code, right? So 4 is it 24? Yeah, right. So it works. But how do you know it worked? It's only one number. It may fail with any other numbers. So when you test, you probably gonna say, okay, let me test with different number. All right. Now do you start to see that if you keep testing with maybe 10 numbers, you technically can write a program to test your program by using loop, right? So you start to see the benefit of, instead of manually test, you can write a code to test your method that you create, right? Which you don't really need to manually look at the result by your eyes like that too. You can just use assert. Okay. So let's see, I'm going to test 10 numbers, right, to see if my 10 numbers are good or bad. So we're going to use assert. So instead of system.out, I'm going to leave it like that to see the result if I want to. You can use assert, and we have assert equals, assert true, and so on, assert. So now you just need to learn how to use this method. And this method pretty much just taking a parameters to compare between, for example, if I want to assert just number 4, right? So I compare, I know that this is going to be 24. So expected value is 24. See that? And if the result that equals, then it's going to be green. That means you pass the test. But if it's failed, it's going to be red when you run the test. Like now, I didn't do different numbers. I just tried to show you, and then we can just replace those with I, right? So this one pretty much, if I run, it's going to just test the same for 10 times, right? And they're all correct. See that? Pass the test. So like technically you don't really need to print out. Like I said, your code already compared to the result that you expected. Let's say your test is passed, so this means that it's good, right? Which now you technically can start to test factorial, start from 0 fact, 1 fact, 2 fact, up to 10 fact, right? By passing I instead, right? But you can see if I run this, it's gonna fail the test. It's gonna be red when it's failed. I tell you why. Because 0 fact is 1. See that? And of course you should say I expected 1, not 24, right? Right, but how could you test all of those then? Because there's so many numbers, right? So that means your expected value have to rely on some of the method that already tested and passed, or a set of array that have the value that's correct, right? To compare. So we could create another factorial then with the loop. Okay. And we assume that the loop already tests and passed that it's going to be working, right? So now, if this is exact the same, then the program will not pick, right? Like this is going to be a compile errors. So if you change one of this, then this is called overloading. The method that is the same but in the name, but different in the signature or the parameters. We call signature because sometimes we have more than one parameters, so we call overloading. Just like I was about to tell you, if I want to sum an int, I could just do overloading. Otherwise it will not allow you to pass this int, right? So this is called overload. That's simple. See that? Now you can sum any data. I mean, you can still return double. That doesn't matter too. But the point is, I want to be able to take int.
So
Right.
you input different data types.
Right.
Okay.
So this is called overloading. Pretty much you understand what's overloading, right? So it's pretty much everything is the same, but you can take different type, right? And factorial is overloading too. And you can always re-implement this. Like I said, you want to test this with loops. So how do you write a loop to do this? For int I equal to 0, right? I less. Okay, how do you? I think we start from number, right?
Number, yeah. So you go down.
And
Y is greater than 0.
still greater than 0, then I minus. And we just multiply
Result equals, or result times equals,
the number, right?
yeah.
But it would still not do the same logic. I'm still not sure. Because
Times I.
data type comes after this static.
Because numbers are
Because
the
I is going to change,
Yeah.
right?
times I. It should work. Yeah, it should work.
All right, so like for example, short. How do you specify the short again?
What do you mean?
How would we know that since it's the same name, it's gonna pick this is an int, right?
Yeah.
All right, so assume that we test the recursion one, we know it works, right? And we just implement the new one. We make the recursion one as the expected, right? And the new one as the method that we want to test with the short, right?
Yeah.
Short version. So it's looking for a short. Like now, it's actually called the same thing. It's always going to be equals, right?
Yeah.
So let's see if we can just make sure it's short, right? That should call the,
The short.
yeah, that version, right? That's what we want. Not sure we can test up to 10 because it's probably going to be very big. Looks like pass the test. So it's technically do what we expected, right? We want to make sure we can just print them all out one more time, right? But it's already passed the test right there, said 14 factorial. 0 fact is 1, 1 fact is 1, right? 2 facts, 2, 3 facts, and so on. Okay? So you start to see the benefit of using unit test. Like, I no longer have to run my main to test manually with my bare eyes, right? So I write a program to test my program. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you start to see the benefit of using unit tests. You don't have to have main. You can isolate the test from your main application. You can write a program to test your program. Okay. And same with the rest. You can just do that. Let me show you one more time with the product. Like, you may create a scenarios to test your product. How do you find the product of two numbers?
Scenario.
Yeah, because we actually try to see if we can use some of the assert, right? So this is just the testing framework because JUnit that I introduced to you. I only pretty much just show you a little bit. I mean, the scenario just like a test case. You want to create a test case for the products, right? So what should be the test case for the product? This is just showing you how to set up the JUnit environments, right? And use assert equals right there. And it's just assert, it has to be expected and actual, right? I mean, yeah, that's gonna be passing, correct? Use assert equals. So yeah, this is pretty much just, if you run it in main, you can call JUnit core.run classes. It returns a result. So the test case pretty much how we going to evaluate the product of 10 numbers maybe.
The area of something.
So you typically want to create, let's say, the product of from 0 to 10 numbers, if you want to try with 10 numbers. And then you typically want to do nested loop because they have to multiply with different number, right? So I times j, right?
Wouldn't you want to start it anywhere but 0?
I mean 0 times 0 is 0, right? We still want to test that
0 times
scenarios.
anything would be 0, so.
Yeah, we want to test that too, right?
There's an increment.
Oh, okay.
It's still scenarios that we want to test. So expected, right? So that's just another test case, right? That I can just make this multiply and test with my program, right?
Make that product.
Oh, but my program actually take an array, right? An array of numbers. So in this case, if I do to loop, it's technically going to create a set of array, right? That I assign the values I and j to it, and then pass to the methods to test, right? So this pretty much is going to be a set of 2 numbers, but if I want to have more than 2, then I can technically need to have another, right, level of loops, right? 3 loops, depending on the size of array. So it's failed the test, right? So it's going to, let's see why it's failing the test. use assert equals. Oh. So they said floating points mean this is double, right? So, you know, in Java, floating points, they will never be equals because it keep going at the end. So that's why the test failed. But it also tell you why, right? Floating point numbers. So because double. Okay. So in this case, if you want to there are two ways. You have to cast it to an object type if you still want to use double. Okay. And then comparative values. But let's simplify this first. Let's make it as an int first for now, because we want to test the other one first, right, to see how it works. So we're going to return ints for now. Yeah, we can do overloaded. Still returns int. Product, we should have is 1, right? Otherwise everything will be 0 out, right? Okay. Now let's test again. So it passed the test, right? If you want to see what's going on, you pretty much just do system.out. Then you see what is really going on. Like this one is pretty much just looping 100 times, correct? If you look at, it's 10 by 10, right? So it's testing number 100 times already. If you want to print the result, you can just call the product and then pass in. And if you want to see when it compare, like I want to see both. This is just comparing with your eyes, right? But unit test already do assert equals doing this whole thing for you. Like this is just showing you, normally you have to do it manually like that, right? And you start to keep looking at all these 100 set of numbers, and you see they prove that they all equals, right? That's why we don't really need this, right? System.out, we just do assert instead. Okay, so that's just showing you how to use the unit to test your method. Any question? So if not, I think we should be good with the car exercise, right? So use git batch, submit on GitHub, do Android, get extra credits. All right, so (6.2) we done with 6.1. We talk about static method, overloaded, and array. Okay. So in 6.2, This is just using a GUI, right? So we're going to pretty much prompt the user to put 2 numbers, create a button, and when you click the button, we get a result, right? So now I've been showing you how to use that with JavaFX, right? Use the dialog box. So what I want to show you for this time, you can look at how to use Swing. The Swing is just the older version of Java from that videos, okay? But you can pick one that you feel like you want to use. You don't have to go with Swing. You can use JavaFX, or you can use the Android, right? I show you how to do Android too, correct? Get input and so on. So this time I'm going to show you how to use web application, create a website, taking numbers, and do calculate. So first, if you want to do with web, you get extra credit too, okay? 10%. So how many of you know HTML? If you want to write a web, you should study HTML. It shouldn't take long. Like, I didn't take any class. I just study from this site to write web. Okay, I've been doing the web for a long time. So HTML. Now we at HTML5. Pretty much just there is HTML and there's HTML5. Okay, so what's the difference, right? It's pretty much HTML is the same, but there's gonna be more like standard, giving more standards. Like, let's look at, let's understand the difference between HTML, XHTML, and HTML5. First, HTML pretty much is, this is called a tag. It's scripting language, like language for the web. Like if you right click and view page source, this is HTML, right? So HTML makes sense. So this is actually HTML. Let's say to write web, you just need to learn HTML. Once you learn this code, you pretty much be able to read it very easy. Okay. So I said markup language, right? Markup language, what is that? It's pretty much just create a static page. What's static page? Static page, there's no interaction, like the contents that you read. That's static page. If I want to make a website that more interact, we call dynamic, right? So I can show you your first HTML page. Is very simple. You technically can just, you can write your code on any text editors. Just make sure you put HTML, and then you say hello world. It's gonna be so much easy. You don't really need to do a lot of things like in Java. And then you save it. Let's put on, I have something on my desktop, but I'll add another one. So you're going to save it just like the way I teach you, right? .java, but this is HTML, right? So we're gonna say hello.html. You can put in a quotation, then it's not going to be a text and switch to all files, right? Either way, right? So done. We just create our first Hello World website. Let's see the result. Is that easy? So you just double click, you use IE as the default, or just pick your browser. Right, let me open with Chrome. Hello World. See that? You right click and you view page source. You see the source code right there, right? Easy. So this is static page. You cannot do anything. Now, if I add a button, then this become dynamic page to interact. Add the text field to take the input like numbers, right? And hit find the sum, right, of the number. You guys want to see that? There are many ways to do this, okay? But since we study Java, let's base on Java first. Okay. And you don't really want to do this in Java for adding two numbers because the overhead is too much. But I'll show you how to do Java just to get the principle. Okay, let me explain details. So what's overhead? Okay. So have you ever visited some websites keep loading forever?
Yeah.
There, that's pretty much they have overhead too much. So that's what it is. Like to do simply add two numbers, you don't need Java because Java actually can do more than that. And simple like that, it's just like you try to kill the snake with a gun. Try to shoot a snake with a gun. You don't really need a gun to shoot a snake. Right. Something like that. Yeah. So let's understand the web principle. So this is a website. It's hosting where? In my local machine. It's pretty much a file, right? If I want you to access to this, I probably need what? A web server or hosting. Hosting pretty much as a computer machine that dedicated to be a web server. Okay. And then you just store the files on that machine. So there are many client and server concept image. So let's look at, this is called client server architecture. So let's look at one other image. So this can be a web server, and all the machine can be a client that try to access to a web page, right? This is all the computer. These are all computer, even server, right? The latest version is, I think it's 8. This is 7, right? Just download zip version for deployer. If you want to put on the Windows machine. So this is for Unix, right? Jar, tar. And this is just all the interaction with click, right? You click and you install, right? And set up. Now, if you want to test the program in your development environment, like we use IntelliJ, right? You download this, like hit download right there, install it, and you just need to know the location where you install the path, right? And then you go to open IntelliJ and create a new project. So you see we have Java Enterprise. So this is what you want. Java is the local application, right? On your desktop, right? Desktop application. So Java Enterprise pretty much just have the application server. See that? That you can link to your, just like when you do JDK, you go to new, right? You go where you download JDK, right? But now you just go to new, and these are the web server. I said there are many of them, but you use Tomcat. So you go to Tomcat, and then just go to the pad where you have your Tomcat install. Like I already installed it. You see, this is my Tomcat, and hit OK. Same with the other one. Okay. Then it's gonna link to the Tomcat version that you link to, right? Well, I have two of them, so now I just pick one. That makes sense. Then we technically need to hit what? Next, right? Okay, and then if you want template, you can use template. Let's see if I don't use template. So we're gonna say calculator app, web app. Okay. All right, so yeah, if you don't use template, you pretty much, you have Tomcat library that you attach, right? And this is the same source, right? You pretty much just need to understand how it works then. Let's see if I want to create. You should have structured your project to have a web folder. So you should create new directory called web or www, or like it depends, okay, like how you want to call, but I think normally they call web in Java, because if you see, if I use the template instead, right? So I'm going to create another project for you to compare. So I'm going to use project from template, right? So yeah, it's gonna link to Tomcat again, right? So that's how you create a new project. Let me create just in the new window, then we can compare. So you start to see templates just add all the file like web folder. You see that? It's pretty much just create the web info, web.xml, web.xml pretty much just the web info. Just like when they introduce you to Android, we have the XML, right? It's like a configuration. Okay, like let's see if I search what is web XML, and it's normally in Tomcat, right? Because we use Tomcat server. Okay. What is, okay. I'll just see how to explain. It's called deployment descriptor file. It's going to describe how to deploy web application. Like I tell you, when you create a web, you probably want, what's that deploy? I mean, you want to host it, right? And make it public, right? Somewhere. So this is just configuration that telling the description of how you want to do it, how to deploy, right? such like in the Tomcat, and Tomcat is web server, or we call a servlet container. Servlet is pretty much a Java server. Okay. So you start to see it's required for every application you deploy on Tomcat. Like you will find one, like let's say right here, we just open it and we use Tomcat. So it's under web info. Okay, it's called deployment descriptors, right? And this is based on XML. Now, what's XML? XML pretty much just what's HTML? A script, right? A script, right? XML is, remember HTML? We just talked about HTML. I just show you what's HTML. Hypertext markup language, right? For the web page, and this is more standard HTML that we should follow, like HTML5 with the doc type tag HTML. We should have head, we should have title. Like what I did is it's just HTML, but people don't like it because it's not structured. HTML5 is more structured. Okay. Like they want to see more public class, public static void main things, like more structure, right? Now what's XML? XML is also markup language. HT hypertext, X is extend, right? Extended. Why is extended? Because HTML has its own tags, right? Remember I called tag or the elements. This is a tag, right? Head, title. And when you write it, the contents go between open and close, just like your curly braces. Open the head, close the head, right? Like curly braces. Open the title, close the title. Title should be inside the head, and the body is the actual contents. H1, make it like headings, like big font. P stand for paragraph. If you look at this is heading, this is paragraph. See that? Whatever inside the body, see in the contents. Title pretty much is a title when you see the title like that, like each title on the tab, okay, on the page. So that's HTML. I mean, I encourage you to go back and learn more. Okay, more elements. Now, when you want to create your own elements, like I could name something we call XML. We extend it out. Let's look at if I want to name. This is called elements. Okay. Let's say I want to name a note, to, form, heading, and the body of the note. So I create my own. Okay. And the reason we want to do that is just a format. That's it. A format. Just like if you want to communicate to your troops as your base, you were in the field, you want to send the format of the data, you can start the format in this form and you create your own tag, and your troops at the base pretty much has the same format. Then you guys can pretty much read the information. That's it, right? And the reason we want to do this because why XML? Because think about, we use this all the time to exchange data between devices. For example, when you text someone with text messages, you can open from PC and see it because they just use XML to exchange the data format, something like that. Okay. And you can see when I introduce you to Android, we just use XML again to interpret between UI to Java code. It's just like the media, right, between different platforms. So same, this is just a web configuration file, right? Okay, to tell what to do, like the name of the application, like this is a web app, pretty much just the tag name web app. And you could set up the session and you can customize your own tag for the libraries. And this, now you learn what HTML, you learn XML a little bit, right? Now if you want to, in Java also have JSP, like Blackboard here. If you look at, it's ending with .jsp, see that? So this is Java, stand for Java server page. JSP is just another type of tag with Java tag. We have HTML tag, right? We have JSP tag too. Okay, like XML create their own tag, JSP create their own tag to use in Java environments. Okay. Now come back. So we understand a little bit of what is web.xml. This is just a path, just put in the information about the web. Go in here because that's deployment descriptors, right? All about information about the web. And all the web pages, like this is JSP, we just mentioned a little bit. Technically, JSP can write in XML, HTML too. Like HTML is HTML here, we seen it, right? But this part is JSP. See that? Like this one is not HTML. This is JSP. We have scriptlet and we have expressions. So let's say, for example, what's scriptlet? This is scriptlet. You want to add Java code, you can add your Java code into HTML right there. Like for example, I can declare int, let's say string name equals to John, right? Okay. Let's use scanner. How do you guys use scanner? Scanner. See, this is our Java code, right? Keyboard equals to new scanner, and we embed Java code inside the HTML because we try to make a web application, right? Now you see that when I import, it's put into import statement, right? But in a web, you have to put in the scriptlet, but this one they call. Let me make sure it's not called scriptlet, only percentage, right? They have expression and directives. This is called directives, like that. Okay, like directives could be page. Defines page dependent attributes such as scripting language, error page, and buffering. Includes, right, a file during the translation phase. So this is page directive, right? Okay. Now Yeah, we'll come back and look at the document. So let's see. I want to print out to the web. So system.out.print line will go where? Console, right? But out.print will go to the web page. So hello. Name. Now we're going to put something to the console, right? System.out.console. I'm going to write something on console and show the information on web page, right? So enter your name, right? Prompt the user to enter name, right? And then how do you read in? Name equals to keyboard dot next, right? And then we show on the web page hello, right? And if you want it to be a big one, so remember we call h1, right? HTML has a tag called heading, right? I just show you that, right? So like you have to do the style in terms of in HTML to bold and make it big, right? Like we call heading surrounding with that tag. Okay, now let's see. We're going to run this. Just hit play. So what it does now is pretty much just try to compile with JDK to check the syntax. If there's an error, it's going to show an error. And now it's try, if no errors, it start to publish on the server, right? On the server, and show the page. Now there's an error, call errors, right? And line 12, there's a problem right here, right? So it's going to say what type of errors. This is just like an error, right? So technically, it seems like it's trying to read something from the console right away. So that's why it said no such element exception. Because I asked it to read, right? So that's why. So instead of doing that, meaning we may not want it to read from I wonder if I can use, let's not use scanner. Let's try with the dialog box, huh? Let's see if I can use J option pane. You know J option pane already, right? Show input dialog. Enter name, right? Let's see what happens. So I rerun and refresh the page. When you do this, you have an option to restart too. Still loading. Maybe let's restart better. Restart the server. Okay, now there's an error. Okay, not seeing it anymore. Okay, there you go. So it's run into that part, right? So let me say Dennis. Hello, Tannis, huh? Let's keep doing that. Hello, John. Oh, because I never put the name back, right? With my code, right? That's why I do the default one, right? So let's restart. Looks like it's gonna show my name, huh? Okay. It looks like it's called 3 times. See that? That code being called 3 times, huh?
Yeah, why
That's-
is it?
Hmm?
Why?
I don't know. I need to find out. Why is it doing that? Yeah. But it works, right? See that? Okay. So for your class exercise, you can start to look at this one a little bit. I show you how to do that. You can start to pretty much input 2 numbers, right? Now, like I said, this is just showing with the Java, right? You technically don't have to, you can do pure web too, right? This one just showing you the transition between, right? So if you want to do pure web, then you don't need to do this one. You can just use the, you just need to learn this part on HTML first. So I would encourage you to go back and pretty much just learn the basic HTML, right? Just the whole first set of the basics, right? This set home, yep. That should be enough. And then come to forms, yeah, up to here. That should be enough. Now, this is how you start to have input, right? This is called form, where this is the HTML to do that. See that? Form, pretty much just like you create a form that you want to fill in, and then you have a button called submit right there, and then you can say type text, just like text field, right? Type text with the name of the text and the value that you wanted to show. So technically we need that in here. All right, so that's form input. And now when you submit, form action is gonna call, the file. Let's see, I'm going to test to call itself, and this is Java code, so you can do HTTP request, that's the class name, get, yeah, the servlet request, like it's just another class like scanner, right? Let me check. I think I have it somewhere, right? Request.get parameter. But I'm looking for yeah, request. It's the request itself is coming from HTTP servlet request, which is correct. Okay. it's already something is pretty much just being imported. And then you just get parameter with the name of the parameter. In this case, parameter is the first name right there. Okay. So you could normally lead to different file, right? Different page, right? But now I just want to test to see what it's going to do. Now we have the form. Now it's null, right? When I hit it, it say hello Mickey. See that in the same page, right? Because we take the value. If I say James, hit it. Hello James. Make sense? Okay. Now reset the form. That's another way to do, like without going through the J, right? The option pin. So review that, and we come back and talk more. All right.